Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jim Fogler, president of the Florida Press Association. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. What a never-ending year this has been. Feels like 2020s, but I know we're all doing things that we never thought we'd be doing, like these virtual presentations, meetings, hence this one today, working from home, and rethinking how we're doing business today. In some cases in our media world, this has sped up our strategies and our strategic plans. This afternoon, we're going to hear from two leaders who did just that and are going to share what they've done to pivot and leverage opportunities, either to rethink in their markets slash geographies with their readers and advertisers in mind, and or taking a new approach with the frequency of delivery by leveraging their digital subscriptions. Before we begin, I have a few short announcements. First off, I would like to recognize our sponsors, Blue Toad, Preferred Marketing Solutions, and our very own Intersect Media. Please mark your calendars for our next VIP roundtable discussion, which will be held on November 12th. This will be the second part of our public notice two-part series, and we're planning to unveil our new modernized floridapublicnotice.com site. Excited about that. Small reminder, this session is being recorded, and if you have any questions, please feel free to use our chat feature and I will get to as many as I can during the panel discussion. And now, without further ado, I will introduce our two guests who will share their stories. First up, we'll be hearing from Glenn Nickerson, publisher and editor of the Gondolier Daily Sun, part of Suncoast Media, who's going to share what they've done to reimagine a few of their publications to be more efficient and nimble in the markets they serve. And then I will introduce Joe DeLuca, Executive VP and GM of the Tampa Bay Times, who's going to share what they've done in regards to reducing their frequency while leveraging their digital audience. So I'm going to start off with Glenn, and we would love to hear what you're thinking and strategies around some of the recent shifting with your publications throughout your markets. Glenn, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. And good afternoon, everybody. I want to first start off and thank the FPA team and everybody who's participated in all these VIP roundtable discussions. I think these virtual meetings give us all an opportunity to network, share ideas, discuss how we're surviving in this pandemic at a time where it's difficult to have in-person meetings or conferences. These sessions are a great way for all of us to connect. And so sometimes we don't feel alone out there too. Because we all have an incredible responsibility to continue to provide the communities across the state with valuable news, information, and we need to be able to help the local businesses market themselves as we get out of this pandemic. So, thank you, all of you. I know you've all worked very hard on organizing these, and I really appreciate it. I think I'll start off just giving everybody a little bit of a brief description of Suncoast Media Group. I was originally founded by the Dunn Rankin family. For those of you who are not familiar with us, Suncoast Media Group is owned by Adams Publishing Group, which is a family-owned community newspaper company. It consists of 37 daily newspapers, 90 weeklies, and a number of other media-related businesses, including digital agencies. Our CEO of the company is Mark Adams. Some of the other Adams family enterprises include outdoor advertising, radio stations, wineries, Camping World, and Good Sam. So Suncoast Media Group falls under APG Florida, which is under our regional president, Mike Beatty. And that includes the Daily Sun, Venice Gondolier, the Key West Citizen, the Florida Free Press, and Suncoast Press, which is our commercial printing company. The Daily Sun serves the communities of Charlotte, DeSoto, and Sarasota counties, and we're down here in Southwest Florida. Now, some of you may have noticed that the description for Suncoast Media Group newspapers' names have changed. That's mainly due to COVID, and I'm going to be explaining that more in this presentation today. Just like everybody else, we faced, steep, serious declines in revenue in April, and we had to act quickly to change our business model in many areas. In circulation, we were faced with potential of having to cut delivery days of the printed newspaper to our subscribers, just like many newspapers were. Many newspapers across APG had to reduce their delivery days as well. It was It was something we didn't want to do because our circulation has been pretty solid over the years. We have an interesting 7-day only subscription model, and we've been very aggressive on making sure that we're the local news leader in the communities we serve. So basically, to our subscribers, we only offer a 7-day subscription, and to the businesses, we offer a 5-day. That's the only two we offer. So, and I've always credited that subscription model, which dates back to the beginning of the Daily Sun, and has never changed as helping us maintain some pretty steady circulation over the years. So we decided to make a long list of expense reductions, which included payroll, newsprint, sections in the paper, and every service we used. We took that list and we compared it to the cost cutting of printing a day, of losing a print day. We looked at every page 7 days a week to see, what we could cut, which would be the least amount of impact to our subscribers. That was one of our main goals: is how do we get out of this without serious impact to our subscriber base. We're fortunate our expense reductions equaled cutting a day, so we moved forward with the expense reductions because we thought that would have the least amount of impact. Of course, we understand at some point we may have to revisit reduction in days, because we did reduce 3 days of delivery in Key West. And I was fortunate enough to ask for some key points of that business model change from our publisher down there, Richard Tamburino. And he provided me with some key points. And this is basically what the Key West Citizen did. And then I'll jump back to what we did at the Daily Sun. They were a 6-day-a-week print publication with relatively low digital and audience to start before COVID. They immediately discontinued their Monday publication when COVID first set in. It was kind of a no-brainer for them. It was a real low revenue day and high expense. They also eliminated their Thursday Paradise section, which is their entertainment publication. And then they made the big decision to cut Tuesday and Thursday print. And they did that around the middle of May. So that left the Key West Citizen with 3 print days per week. They continued to build 5 publications per week and marketed Tuesday and Thursday as digital only. Meanwhile, their digital subscriptions skyrocketed. I believe they went from 16,000 in revenue in January up to 25,000 in August. So they had a 51% increase in revenue. So now they have about 90% of their print subscribers registered to sign in for the digital, which has now become a APG company benchmark that I have to fight against. So that's how the Key West Citizen did it, which is part of our group. Going back to the Daily Sun, the biggest change we made at the Daily Sun was eliminating our zoned editions. We still had the Punta Gorda Sun, Port Charlotte Sun, Englewood, and we also had a Northport Sun. Our goal has always been to give each of those communities its own newspapers. The zoned editions required 2 plate changes for the A section and 2 plate changes for the local sections for all 4 editions, 6 days a week. And the Sunday edition we kept common. So we merged all of those mastheads under the Daily Sun, serving Charlotte, DeSoto, and Sarasota counties. That move, along with page reductions, some other cost savings, was the equivalent of what we would have saved if we eliminated that print day. We did eliminate a Sunday section. We eliminated our weekly entertainment publication, and I mean that one was kind of easy because there wasn't any events going on anyways. One of the other big moves is we eliminated almost all of our correspondents that we pay to write for us. So getting back to some of the feedback that we've gotten since we've made that change, because it's been a long time now, we were actually surprised of the lack of reaction from the readers when we merged the mastheads. There's been almost no complaints about it. We're now working on improving that brand after years of having many mastheads. Now online, we actually continue to utilize the local newspaper names. At this point, we really don't see any harm in keeping the localized names online. Our digital subscribers can still log on to, for example, the Punta Gorda Sun website if they prefer that. But we now have a main landing page on yoursun.com with all of the brands and options. So you can either select to go into the local or not, because the main page has a complete feed of all the news. Just a quick update on some of the changes we made in advertising. We were, obviously we were very concerned, so we went on the offensive. It was a struggle. I think we all know advertising was a struggle. Our focus was on local ad revenue. We wanted to get our local businesses back on track. Part of that plan included a large stimulus program that our regional advertising director, Omar Zuko, discussed in previous roundtable discussions. It was very similar to a program that we launched when we were hit by Hurricane Charlie back in 2004. Throughout this pandemic, we kept our offices closed and closed to the public and strictly followed all the CDC guidelines. But our goal was actually to keep our teams at work unless we had associates who were particularly vulnerable to the virus or if they had family members that were. So during the peak of shutdown, we had about 70% of our associates were still working in our spaced out offices with a strict mask mandate. So all of our employees are required. Our ad team quickly adapted, started doing morning and late afternoon calls for updates and sales activity. We continue to do the afternoon calls. We actually come to like it. It gives us a good recap, and we track to see how our sales are doing on a day-by-day basis to see if there's any trends. And throughout this cycle, we've noticed some trends, as some of you may have too. There's been some up cycles and some down cycles during this process. The other thing that we really, we were rather new to the digital game a few years ago. So we've been seeing incredible growth in that area, but we really stepped it up when COVID hit. We figured it was a good opportunity with stay-at-home orders, and we wanted to capitalize it as best as we could. So we started bringing in our own in-house digital agency for digital sales blitzes, updated all of our packages, included a lot more O&O and packages with other types of digital opportunities. We did digital sound contests throughout the summer months. We also had a big push in promotions with Second Street. That's been a huge hit for us. And it's been especially good at building new advertiser relationships, including opportunities to honor teachers, first responders. We did healthcare workers. And then there's just a ton of other, anyone who uses Second Street there's an enormous amount of promotions that you can tap into to try to get some creative advertising solutions for the businesses out there. So to finish up on the advertising side, we're still down year over year, but we ended up only down about 14% in September. It looks like in October we're probably going to be right about the same. Our goal is really to try to flatten it out by the end of this year, and we hope we get there. That's all I have, Jim. Is there any? Do you have any questions?
Thanks, Glenn. Looking at the chat feature, I don't have any questions, but I thought I'd start off by saying, appreciate you sharing, some of these things that you've done, and I'm curious about the publications that you've put under a different masthead name. Could you share with us one of the biggest challenges you had with that and how you overcame that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge was our attraction to it. We've always had it that way. When you have something for so many years, it's part of history, and you hate to change the name of a newspaper, especially 4 of them. And we always lived in we kind of it was Derek Donranka's philosophy is he wanted his own edition for each high school district. It was really what we wanted is to capture those communities and actually have the name of that community, and also to help us with single copy sales. Granted, that was at a time where we're in a much more competitive market back in the the 90s and the 80s, even up and through the 2000s. Back in the day, this newspaper used to compete against the News Press and the Sarasota Herald Tribune, and since then, News Press isn't delivered in this market. Sarasota Herald Tribune still is, but it's less of a competitive situation anymore. So it was difficult to pull the trigger and actually do that. But we knew we had to do it. There was no way around it. We had to find large amounts of cuts, and that was an easy one as far as production wise, and waste and everything else. We were spending quite a bit of money to have those owned editions.
Glenn, you talked a little bit about your afternoon huddles and getting the advertising team together and talking about, where the opportunities were. We heard this morning from the weekly group that there was some emerging categories of business Anything you find emerging from those meetings and where there's opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare has been pretty strong for us. It always is. We're in a very older demographic here, just like many markets in Florida. But home and garden has probably been the one that has really taken off. We're still in a building boom here. People are putting their house on the market and selling it within a day or two. And we also, we're fortunate that we have two major, planned development communities where they're going to build, one of them's building 25,000 households, the other one's building 30 to 40,000 households. And then there's numerous other communities that are popping up. We're fortunate we're in a growing market, but that's made the home and garden market and even the builders have actually become a really good resource. Unfortunately, the realtors have actually eased back on us just because they're as soon as they put it out, they're selling the houses as quickly as they get the listings, and the inventory is very low. We still are seeing the consistent advertisers, but we're not seeing what we normally see. Those are the main ones that it's really, I think, home and garden and everything related to to the construction. That's been a key one.
Yeah, heard a lot of the similar categories this morning as well.
Mm.
Anyone want to jump into the chat and ask Glenn a question? Don't want to take over.
Glenn, can I ask you one?
Sure.
When you combined the four titles into the one title, did you see any reduction in circulation off of that?
No, not at all. Actually,
Yeah.
Since COVID started, we've been up 1% to 2% in circulation, and so we really haven't seen anything as far as any ramifications of it. I was surprised. I haven't even had anybody complain about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The strange thing is in the community, they still call us by the old names, though, because I go to all the chamber functions and all the board meetings, and everybody still calls us by the old names. So I got a branding issue now, but.
Very good.
Hey, Glenn, on that note, what did you do on the communication side, to let your readers know that these changes were coming down the road or down the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly through my column. I've been doing a front page column. I got back to it during the whole COVID thing to communicate to the readers and talk to them about what's going on. But it started when we were making the changes. So I was keeping them informed through the column. We've also been doing some marketing campaigns. We've been trying to push people more to signing up for digital. That was one of the other concerns we had, is we really didn't have enough people signed up to log into our website. We're only at about 30%, and we really need to grow that into the 70. And I know now our benchmark's 90, thanks to Key West, but it's, we really need to get more people using the online version. And we've been running campaigns and we've been getting some activity with it, but we've got to get more aggressive with that and get more people prepared for the future. And so that's one of the things that we're really trying to work on, because the ad campaigns are they drive some, but not enough. So we're trying to get more touch points as far as that. And we're actually doing some email marketing to try to push that as well.
Awesome. Well, obviously you did a good job, since you didn't get a lot of reader complaints on that front. We do have a question in the chat, Glenn. Have you had any difficulty reporting on science-based COVID type of news or anything on masking news, or is that even being covered by your publications?
Yeah, we've been covering that. We've been doing daily COVID number email blasts and breaking news. It's actually one of our biggest drivers of traffic on our website. We do it every day. The poor guy who has to update it reminds me that he does it 7 days a week. But it's, we've been updating that. We keep it in the paper. We were doing a lot of the Q&As in the paper from the health department to try to keep people informed. We have been getting some pushback because there has been some fighting over masks. The mask issue has been, it's been an ongoing, even in the school systems today, they're still fighting about why the kids should have to wear masks. So, there's still a lot of opposition to it out there, but we've been covering it on a regular basis, and we continue to.
Cool. What's next? I mean, anything on your hit list?
Next, just to continue growing digitally. We're going to continue to drive that train. We got to be ready for the next recession, whatever it may be. and get out of this mess that we're in with COVID. But is building towards the future. That's what's next is, and we understand that the future, may be more like what the Tampa Bay Times did, which is what you're going to hear about next. So we need to be prepared for that. And and that's one of the things we're not, because we're not in a very digitally savvy community. Unfortunately, they love their print product here. They really do. And so we're going to we got to be prepared for who retires here in 20 years. And that's what's next.
Well, Glenn, thank you for sharing, and thank you for teeing up Joe as we go to our next panelist. And, Joe, this bold move to publishing the Tampa Bay Times 2 days a week while leveraging digital has been quite the buzz, not only in Florida, but throughout the nation. And we'd love to hear from you the thinking behind it and the results to date, if you could share. And thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And I'd like to echo what Glenn said at the outset and thank Jim and Karen and Devin and all those at the FPA who put so much work into these VIP roundtables. Among the many values that the FPA has right now, especially one of the major contributions it does to our industry is to be able to give us the chance to know we're not in this alone, and that sharing best practices and communicating with each other, while it does go on in the background, it's great to have it in these formal settings. So thank you so much, Jim and Karen and Devin and your whole team for doing these. Seriously.
Oh, you're welcome. Our pleasure.
So what I'm going to try to do, although I have slides, I'd like this more to be a conversation than a presentation. So I'm going to ask and reiterate what Jim said. If you have a question, just speak up and I'll stop and listen, or send it to Jim in the chat. We can make this into a conversation. What I'm going to do is kind of set up what were the conditions that drove us to making this change, this rather, as Jim described it, a bold change. And then to sort of talk to you about how it's going and what are the key indicators after 6.5 months into this. I mean, so let me start by saying that this idea is not one that we cooked up post COVID-19 pandemic. It just wasn't. It was in our 5-year plan, with this year being, sort of 1.5 years into that plan. It was in our 5-year plan, in really 3.5 years into the plan. And so we'd always knew that we would either at that point be a 1 day a week, a Sunday only, or a midweek and a Sunday print frequency. And so it wasn't something that we were caught off guard thinking about and having to throw together a plan. We had a fully developed plan. We just weren't ready to implement it. And the reason we weren't ready to implement it is the other element of the strategic plan was to build up alternative revenue sources in the interim before we got to the frequency change. So said another way, we needed to push very hard on our digital subscriptions and grow that business. We needed to grow the business in our digital ad agency. We needed to expand and grow our event business. We needed to just grow our straight digital sales, direct sales. And so we had these elements of alternative revenue sources that were supposed to grow over the next 3.5 years. And then we would reach a point where the secular trends in ROP advertising would fall to a trigger point where we would then make the move to the frequency change and our revenue would look much different. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we didn't have the opportunity to have those alternative revenue sources mature to the level where we would have wanted them at the time we wanted to make this change on the calendar of our strategic plan. So, the last 4 bullets on this slide are everything you all know. Within 2 weeks in April, our advertising revenue declined by 50%, 50, which coincidentally, but not a happy coincidence, was the exact trigger point when we would have, in the strategic plan, 3.5 years from now, made the change to 2 day a week or 1 day a week frequency. Okay? And then we were left with, okay, we're at this revenue level, which in our case, by the way, just for a percentage, advertising is still, 65% of our revenue. So this is basically 30 to 35% of our revenue disappearing overnight, which is not a sustainable situation for the Tampa Bay Times. So the question became, how long is this going to go on? And that leads you to the next 3 bullets, right? We had all of a sudden stay-at-home orders with no real end to them. The malls are closed, the retail businesses are closed, reduce hours. Hospitality industry brought to a complete shutdown, and with really no end in sight. And some of our most pessimistic projections that we were hearing across the industry and from other publishers was that it was going to get a lot worse before it got better. And so that simply wasn't sustainable for us. Devin? Can we go back one? That's right. Thank you. So let's go back, Devin. Go ahead. There. So when it came to deciding what was going to be the frequency, we've been obviously watching these numbers, which is ROP, display advertising, and preprint revenue distribution by day of week. And the light bars you see here are pre-COVID-19. And the dark blue bars are what we experienced in the first couple weeks of the economic impact of COVID-19. So if anything, what it served to do was exaggerate the situation, which we thought it would over the next 3.5 years. It just did it in 2 weeks. And so you can be very visually clear here that the vast majority of our advertising revenue is on Wednesday and Sunday. So we've got the midweek groceries and preprint package, and we've got a non-sub package on Wednesday. And then of course, Sunday has always represented somewhere in the area of half of our preprint and ROP revenue. None of this has anything to do with digital. This is just in the printed newspaper. So looking at this chart, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out which 2 days it was going to be if we were going to make this change. And so that's sort of how we got to Wednesday and Sunday. It was largely an advertising driven decision. Needless to say though, our readership behaviors are focused on those 2 days as well, and always have been. Yeah. So in other words, we sold a Wednesday, Sunday frequency in print prior to doing this, just because of this revenue. And we had around 40,000 people who bought Wednesday and Sunday frequency. So, we knew that our readership was going in that direction, and our advertising just went there without our permission over 2 weeks. So that's how we got to Wednesday and Sunday. Devin? So this is essentially the key elements of the plan. Obviously, we're going to reduce print frequency from 7 days to Wednesday and Sunday. The next bullet says add content and features to our Sunday print edition and our daily e-newspaper edition. I'm going to talk about why that's important in a minute. But what it should also say is that as it was in our strategic plan and as we did it, even though we did a lot of the things that Glenn mentioned in terms of shaving other expenses, we doubled down on content. So in other words, we did not reduce anything in the newsroom in terms of staffing, and we even added some content resources in the newsroom, knowing that if this is going to work, it's going to be all about content, because all we're doing is changing the delivery system. So we need to maintain the content and enhance it in the areas in the delivery systems that we're trying to promote. And so that's where we came up with, adding features to our e-newspaper edition. So for example, it's got widely expanded comics that you don't have in the print edition. It's got a expanded sports section and late sports. And there's a number of features and content that have been added to it to basically enhance its presentation, the e-newspaper.
Hey, Joe.
Yep.
Quick question on your, I'm going to call them key days of the week. You mentioned Wednesday, Sunday, that was the decision that was made. Was there any thought to keeping the Friday as you guys were going through that thought process and looking at your key days of the week?
Yeah, it was the next highest day in terms of revenue. So we
Yeah.
had some conversations about it, but there were a number of reasons that it did. I mean, and I'm going to show you towards the end of this, the magnitude of the cost change here, Jim, but to really get into, like everybody else, we looked at a day here and a day there, maybe just eliminate Saturday, or maybe look at Monday because the revenue's so low. But the fact of the matter is, the expenses that you can eliminate in that kind of a frequency change are only the direct expenses of that day, largely newsprint and delivery. You don't cut in to the infrastructure of your organization and get the big numbers that you can. So we were balancing that sort of dynamic with what will it take to really get cost reductions, and is it worth it to add Friday? And
Gotcha.
so at the end of the day, I'll talk to you about adding days back in a minute, but that we did consider it, but it just wasn't, it didn't make economic sense.
Got it.
So we needed to have an aggressive focus on digital engagement of our former print-only subscriber base. So said another way, for people who were print-only subscribers, we had to get them quickly engaged in the digital product. That means getting them logged in. That means getting them to know that it's part of their subscription, and that means showing them the value of reading. When I say digital products, I mean primarily the e-newspaper and the website, okay, which we draw distinct differences in, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And then the next bullet, we utilize the e-newspaper as the gateway drug for former print subscribers because, for obvious reasons, it's the closest digital distribution to the experience of reading a print newspaper, right? It's curated for you. It's got pages. It's organized the way the print product is organized. It's the similarity of the experience, except for the physical feel of the paper, is as close as it's going to get. And so we wanted to focus on that. As for those former print readers who weren't engaged digitally, we wanted to get them to the e-newspaper and then expand the engagement from there. And then we simplified our subscription offers. We have only two. There's no such thing as frequency of delivery and print and all that. There's two offers. You can buy 7 days of content digital only, or you can buy 7 days of content with Wednesday and Sunday in print. And it includes digital only. We have different rates for those too, but that's all we offer, okay? If you did want just Sunday, we could accommodate that, but you're still paying the same. Devin? So I'm going to talk a little bit about subscriber engagement, and I put it up this far up in the presentation because a lot of people have asked us, you know, if we were to have time or do this different, what would we do different? This is what we would do different. We would have spent the next 3 years working on this prior to making the frequency change. In other words, the efforts to take people who are not, whose subscriptions included digital content all along. So print subscribers. So if you bought a 7-day print subscription to the Times, it included digital. If you bought a weekend print subscription, it included 7 days of digital. Even a Sunday only did. So what we would have done, what we would do differently is drive these types of strategies as hard as we could, so that when we made the switch, the vast majority of our subscriber base would already be engaged digitally. We were doing it, but not as aggressively as we should, because we didn't expect to make this change in April of this year. We expected to make it in 2025, 2024. So that's the one thing we would do different. That's the preparation for this that to me is most critical. And you'll see why in a minute, and how that translates to revenue. But anyway, this is just some bullets of stuff that we do now. I'm sure you all do this already. We use email newsletters as an engagement tool a lot. So we have content-specific newsletters that drive you to both the e-newspaper and the website. We use email campaigns with notes from editors and various Times executives talking about the value of things. We even send a direct mail, snail mail postcard to all people, all subscribers, print subscribers we didn't have email addresses for. We did an email match with companies who can do address to email matching, so we could reach out. We did geofencing campaigns. We're still doing those, matching physical addresses to IP addresses and delivering targeted digital engagement messages. And then we've got a whole team across the newsroom, across consumer marketing, advertising, marketing, working on these strategies every day. And these 5 bullets here, this is the tip of the iceberg of the stuff that we're doing. And then over on the left is just we do a lot of print ads trying to do it, trying to point out that people are having a good experience with the e-newspapers, and you'll note the art on the ad reflects the demographic that we've got to get to on these non-engaged subscribers. So this is something which, if we were to start over, we would have worked hard at this for a number of years and got those numbers up prior to switching. Devin? All right, now we're going to talk about what's happened in 6.5 months. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this chart, but it's very telling in terms of the e-newspaper and the website, and why it's sort of the gateway for these unengaged, non-digitally engaged subscribers. The first bar on the left is our 7-day subscriber base. Okay, the bottom chunk, the green, is the website, tampabay.com, that they use and engage in the website. The light blue is the e-newspaper, and the dark blue at the top is the combination of both. So what you see in these 7-day subscribers that are engaged is 48 plus 32% of them use the e-newspaper. So 80% use the e-newspaper, okay? And then as you go across, there are the former print frequencies that we had, the people that used to be weekend subscribers, okay? You can see they were, dominant print. So there's 66% of them use the e-newspaper and 33% of them use the website. And then the next one is Sunday, Wednesday, and the next one is Sunday only, and the last one is digital. So without going through them all, what you can see in the light blue is there's an inverse relationship between e-newspaper usage and how much you relied on print prior to this change. You see what I'm saying? And so this data has proven out that e-newspaper experience is the best way to get the former print-only reader to digital engagement because it's the most similar distribution to a printed newspaper. Devin? Okay, so this is interesting in that these are just the e-newspaper stats as of yesterday, okay? So I should point out that prior to COVID-19 and prior to the frequency change, we had 12,000 activated e-newspaper users, 12,000. And on an average day, we would have 8,000 users. As of today, there's 81,000 activated users. And on an average day, non-print day, so not Wednesday and not Sunday, we've got 42,000 using it. And on an average day when we're printing, we've got 24,000. So what we want this number to be 80,000 users on a daily basis. So we've got to put a way to go. We've got to activate more subscribers and we've got to engage more so they're using them on a daily basis. But we can see the growth in it in the numbers right there. Next. So I only throw this up and you can go in the App Store and see this, not because I wanted to say we have good reviews on this is our e-newspaper app reviews, and there's 1,400 of them in the App Store page. You can go there and look at this yourself. But why I threw it up, because what's interesting is that 75% of them are not reviews of the functionality of the app. 75% of them are like what you see here. I've been a lifelong reader of the Times. I love the print version. I thought I would never like reading the app on the iPad, but I love it. It's that kind of comment that you hear versus the functionality, which is normally what you see in a rating of an e-newspaper, of any kind of app. And so that's been striking to us. It's that conversion of thinking I hate it, and then I use it and I actually like it. It's okay. And you can see that played out in at least 80% of these 1,400 rankings. Devin? So now we're going to talk about the challenge. After 6.5 months, the audience segments have fallen in sort of a very defined set of 3 buckets, okay? So our total subscribers, everybody who pays for content at the Tampa Bay Times, and this is an off-season number, obviously, because as everyone knows, the seasonals don't come back. Normally that'd be closer to 200, but right now it's 168,000, okay? 21,000 of them are digital only. 91,000 of them are former print subscribers who have activated and engaged digitally. So that's the second bucket. And I'll tell you why that's important in a minute. And the third bucket is the project. That's 55,000 of them, of former print only subscribers, if you will. They always had digital as part of their subscription, but they were not engaged, are still not engaged or activated. That means that they're just getting Wednesday and Sunday. And when they get their renewal bill, and it's roughly the same as it was prior, they're not happy because we've not engaged them digitally yet. And so we're going to talk about the economic impact of that in a minute. But in terms of the second bucket, the former print subscribers who have been activated and engaged digitally, here's what we're seeing. The churn of that group is better, actually, than our churn was prior to making this change. 1. 2, we're actually able to lift rates at the level we were lifting them prior to the frequency change of that group. So, that's where we got to get the bottom 55,000 or some portion of them into that group, because on the bottom group, that's where we're having high churn because they just feel like I don't want this e-newspaper. I don't want to go on the website. I want my printed newspaper, and I'm only getting it 2 days. If you're not going to give it to me, I'm going to cancel. And if you don't, and if you want me to stay, you got to charge me, 2/7 of what you were charging me. That's their attitude. And so we've got to convert them, as many as we can, into that second bucket, activated and engaged digitally. And then with the remaining ones we can't convert, we got to find out what the rate floor is and go there in order to keep them. So that obviously has impact on our consumer marketing revenue. But really, after 6.5 months, this group, these three segments have become more and more clearly defined. So in other words, we could have distinct strategies to deepen engagement of the second group, which then improves reduces their churn considerably, continues to reduce it, and we can continue to raise rates. And then we've got to find a way to actually even engage the third group. So that's how it's broken down for us after 6.5 months. Devin? So let's take a look at it, how it ends up financially. At the top is the revenue impact since April, the second week in April, relative to the frequency change, not COVID-19. Our advertising revenue fell 50% due to COVID-19. Bruce Fallman, who you all know and love, like me, will tell you that we have lost $0 due to the frequency change. All of our losses are COVID related. For advertisers who were tied to a specific day in print, for advertisers who were tied to a specific day in print, they are either currently on the sidelines still due to the economy and COVID-19, or he's moved them into the e-newspaper, where we're averaging $20,000 a day, $20,000, which we had like $2,500. So the e-newspaper, because you can charge a lower rate for that, has replaced the rate point for the zoned advertising, as well as served as the day of week option for somebody who doesn't want to just be on Wednesday and Sunday, but likes that daily newspaper format, a page adjacent to content, that sort of delivery system format. But Bruce has it at 0 right now. And I ask him every day, you can ask him every day. And he still says it's not impacting our revenue. Now, in terms, the next number is print subscribers and single copy. So we've lost, and these are annual numbers based on how we're tracking. I should point that out. Okay, we've lost 5.2 million of that, and that's on a base of 33 million. Okay, now why have we lost it? Well, it's one factor is we lost 5 days of single copy. Okay, we don't put out a print single copy edition on 5 days of the week when we don't publish a print newspaper. So that revenue's gone and it's not coming back. The other piece is what I just told you about, which is that in those 55,000 non-engaged, non-activated digital subscribers, we're getting hurt on both rate and increased churn. Okay, so what we've got to do after this cycles through a year, we're clearly going to know what that baseline looks like, and all in the interim, we're going to be trying to engage them. So, I don't think this is an ongoing loss. I think this levels off, and we go up from there. And then there's a small gain of people who were print subscribers who said, yeah, I'm going to cancel my subscription, but I'm going to start a digital subscription. And we've added a couple $100,000. The other loss to revenue due to the print frequency change is the alternate delivery. So we had commercial customers that we deliver for, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Financial Times, and so forth. And we don't have a 7-day delivery operation. And so we lost a couple $1 million there. Now that's not, that's not a net loss, because obviously all the expense of that one. So that's $7 million that we can attribute directly to the frequency change. In terms of expense, get rid of this. In terms of expense, these are the expenses that we eliminated directly attributed to the frequency change. So a lot of payroll, as I told you, when you start not printing 5 days a week, you're eliminating a lot of production crews and also management because of that. You're also dramatically reducing the wear and tear on your equipment, your maintenance, and your electricity, and all of the infrastructure that goes around printing on those days. We also have no trucking on those days. And we also are only operating our delivery centers 2 days a week. And so in terms of even our distribution management got smaller. In terms of newsprint and ink, I mean, that's obvious. That's $6 million. And then the delivery expense here is fees to delivery contractors for not, they're not delivering on 5 days a week. And then another $1 million in stuff unrelated to it. Some of our insurance costs dropped dramatically. Some of our other consumables, plates and chemistry and things like that all dropped. And so the total reduction in expense on an annual basis to the Times was 20 million, and the loss in revenue at this juncture, and I'm telling you, it's starting to look like that's what it's going to be, is 7 million. So, it's been a positive 13 million on the bottom line thus far. That's it. I'm taking a breath.
Please do. Wow.
Hey, Joe, I have a quick question for you. With the, now that you have so much availability of press time, have you considered taking on more commercial work to try to make up for that?
Yeah, the problem is there's not a lot out there. You know what I mean? Because what's going on in the industry here, particularly in Florida, is you have the consolidation of plants. And so, everybody's moving around printing. And, frankly, to be honest with you, Gannett's got most of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we would do that, and we do pursue it. I mean, that's a possibility. The thing is, I would have to have a critical mass of it, Glenn, in order to start adding back days, because I've got infrastructure that goes along with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just adding press crew. The other thing to point out to you, the cost of just adding 1 day in print to the Times. So this goes back to your question, Jim. If we wanted to add Friday, we would add just in variable costs $3.5 million, roughly. So what Bruce would have to say is, I've got $3.5 million in incremental revenue that I can tie to Friday. And by the way, it's sustainable. Because if it's not, I don't want to put Friday in and then take it back 6 months from now.
Right.
You don't look like you don't know what you're doing. So, I mean, I think that's what and that's what we say to our readers, by the way. We get asked all the time. We just don't have the business model, the advertising for that. And we would add it back tomorrow if we had it.
Gotcha.
Well, you gained $13 million, so that's all, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things, Glenn, where it had to work. First of all, it had to work, and we knew we were either going to be looked at as, bold innovators or complete idiots. And I think right now we're right in the middle on that scale.
Yeah.
We can still go either direction.
All right, let's open it up to more questions. Anyone else?
I have one for either Glenn or Joe or both. What are we hearing from our advertisers, especially the ones that have been sitting on the sidelines? What kind of feedback are we getting from them? Do we expect them to start jumping back in and the end of the year, or are we thinking first quarter, or who knows?
Glenn, you want to go first?
Yeah, it's been a mix, Karen. I mean, there's some of them are back in. We've lost a lot of businesses. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are never reopened, unfortunately. And but some of them are ready to get back and ready to get moving. But others are being very cautious. So it's really a mixed bag out there right now. I'm hoping to see more activity, especially with season coming. Season in our particular market is really important. It's about a 30%, fluctuation. But then we also have the concern that, we have about 10 to 15% of our seasonal influx of Canadians, and they're not coming this year. So even the season might be a little bit light. So the businesses are looking at all this, and their revenues were low. I mean, a lot of them are shut down, or the revenues are just not been where they used to be. So I would say it's a very slow process at this point, and it's trickling along. And then the other part of it is we have to keep a very close look at our accounts receivable, because we can't let them get behind, because that if we let them get behind, then we lose an advertiser that way. So. We're really watching everything very closely, but I feel for the local businesses, because they really are struggling out there, and traffic's just not what it used to be for most of them. There are some that are doing very well, and they're actually booming, but a lot of times when a business is doing great, they cut back on their advertising, or they reduce it somewhat.
So Karen, we started to see a lift actually in June and July, and then of course the second wave hit after we sort of opened up the state completely and did it in somewhat reckless fashion. Then we had the spike, and everything pulled back down. Now, what I will say is that going into the fall, the holidays don't look great, but we're starting. What's interesting, we were thinking that, hey, look, if we don't have pre-printers, for example, back on Thanksgiving, they're gone forever. But Bruce has changed his thinking on that because what we're getting some schedules of pre-printers in 2021, but they're not interested in Thanksgiving. And when you talk to them, you find out it's because they're not interested in the public relations hit of creating a big Black Friday event and becoming a super spreader or whatever. So get through this holiday season. But we've got a schedule for Macy's for next year. We've got several folks that we thought were gone forever who've given us 2021 schedules. So there's some reason for optimism.
Joe, can I jump in there and ask you, when you looked at the readership of the digital, the 5 days on digital, did you do an age breakdown on that? Are your seniors, I know your market, my market, so much of Florida is driven by seniors. Are the younger folks coming back, or have you seen seniors returning on the digital platform?
Yeah, there's no doubt that digital engagement is inverse proportion to age, right? I mean, you know that. And so, and we see that, Jerry. But conversely, we just done a lot of surveys, so we've got a lot of data right now. 55% of that group that you saw that's not engaged, 55% of them do go online to get news. Do go online, and so it's just not local news. And so they have the technology. They're very stubborn about the delivery system. But when we've been able to engage them, okay, 1 out of 3 loves it. The second one will live with it, and the third one has no use for it. That's how it's breaking out.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yes, it is focused on age, but boomers are tech savvy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting close to being in that age group, and I'm using all kinds of technology.
I won't touch that one, Joe.
Thanks.
Hey, we got a question in the chat, and it kind of dovetails to what Jerry was saying. So what's your gut feeling about the consumer going forward? Will they increasingly be willing to pay for an e-edition newspaper or access to the website information? What do you say? What would you say your realistic goal is going to be over the next 3 to 5 years for paid circulation, print, digital combined? Yeah,
so obviously we've done a lot of modeling on that, and at this juncture, what it looks like to us is we once we get through a full year of this frequency change, whatever our baseline is, and I think it's going to be relatively close to what you saw in those numbers. So let's call it 140 daily, 140 in print and digital, and somewhere between 25 and 30 in all digital. We think all digital gets to 50,000 in 3 years. That's what we think, and we think that we lose roughly 5 to 7% of the print digital, either to migration to digital only or out the door. Per year. That's what we think. And just to give you some idea, what we're averaging is $165 right now is our average home delivery 7-day subscription. You know what I mean? Not 7 days in print, but 7 days of content. And our average digital is 96. Okay, so those are annual numbers. And so the idea here is to grow that digital number up, which we've been able to do. So I would answer the question, yes, that we do expect it to grow, and but the 7-day print and digital is going to decline, and the digital only, which is website, e-newspaper, podcast, all that stuff, is going to grow. That's what we think, and we're seeing that now. I mean, we had 12,000 digital subscribers before we made the change. We have 21 now. 6 months.
Wow. Yeah, it's great growth. All right. Anyone else?
Hey, Joe, just, you mentioned that you're gonna, because you have this option now with digital, you're adding more content. I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great opportunity. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what type of content you're adding and how you're doing it.
Well, obviously, everything we have, is on the website. But in terms of the e-newspaper, the pagination of the e-newspaper, yeah, we add pages. We've added, like I said, comics. We've added TV listings, which we haven't had for years. We've added stock listings curated by the local readership, which we haven't had for a couple of years. We've added additional national news, which doesn't, wire stuff nationally, Washington Times News Service, that kind of stuff, that doesn't make it into the print edition. So we basically have tried to beef up everything, but also the sports. We've got a lot of additional sports, and we pick up a lot of wire stuff from people, from sports teams that are from where our seasonals are coming from. So a lot more hockey and stuff from the Canadian. So we've expanded the stuff that we think. The other thing we're in the process of doing is creating a section for seasonal residents, especially with the content that they would like, with the idea that if we could get them to stay as a subscriber rather than suspend their subscription when they go back, there's millions of dollars in that. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing because we already have the content, Glenn.
Right.
It's packaging it and putting it online into the e-newspaper in page format.
Hey, Joe, two quick questions, and then we're gonna wrap things up. But real quick, is all the digital accessed via computer, desktop, internet only, or is it like in a downloadable format as such, like an ebook? Giving readers, the petting the cat experience, I call it, on Kindles, Fire Table, that type of thing.
We know a lot of Kindle, that kind of stuff. We are 60% mobile, 40% desktop. That's where we're at right now. So we got a lot of iPads and phones and things. And the app is more popular. The mobile app on the e-newspaper is far more popular than the desktop experience of the e-newspaper. The website has always been more popular on mobile.
And actually this dovetails into this the question that you just answered. In your opinion, Joe, the e-newspaper experience, which you shared, but how much of an investment have you made into the e-newspaper?
In terms of the content, not a lot. I mean, I would say the investment that we made is in time, but it was resources we already had, content we were already creating, wire services we already had. We did buy some additional comics, and we bought the TV listings and stuff, but that was very minimal cost. I would say if we added, because we had an e-newspaper before,
right?
So I would say, Jim, if we added $15,000 to $20,000 in content costs, I'd be surprised, because most of it we had, but we couldn't publish because of the cost of a page of newsprint.
Gotcha. Totally makes sense, and I appreciate you being so transparent, Joe, with everyone on the call. And
Jim, let me add one thing quickly,
yep.
Which is maybe patently obvious, but maybe didn't come through. This hasn't been easy. And I'm very worried about the 55,000 and our ability to convert them and what the rate floor is on that. Our success with those 55,000 unengaged is going to be the difference between success and failure, because we're going to keep growing those other numbers, and we can see that. So I'm not here to tell you that this is a bed of roses, but it's working better than I thought it would.
Joe, I'm going to speak for everybody on this call. We are rooting hard for you and the Tampa Bay Times team, and look forward to continuing to learn about what you guys are doing. So I can't thank you enough for, once again, your transparency. Special thank you again to both you and Glenn, and to our sponsors, Blue Toad, Preferred Marketing Solution, and Intersect Media. Hope you found our session today valuable. As we always look for feedback from our members, please feel free to share with Karen and I your feedback or any suggestions on future VIP roundtables. We look forward to seeing everybody again on November 12th at 2 p.m. for our next VIP roundtable session, and we will be unveiling our FloridaPublicNotice.com website. Excited about that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.